Have you ever wondered if the strange noises you hear at night are more than just your imagination? What if the shadows that dance across your walls aren't simply tricks of the light? What if your home, the one place you should feel safest, is hiding a dark secret? This is my story. A story of a house that wasn't just haunted, but something far more sinister. Stay with me till the end as I unravel the terrifying events that made me question everything I believed about the world and myself. It all started on a bright sunny day. I had just bought an old Victorian house on the outskirts of town. It was a steal, really. The kind of deal that seems too good to be true. And maybe it was. The house was grand, with tall, ornate windows, a wraparound porch, and a sense of history that spoke to me. I imagined myself restoring it to its former glory, turning it into the perfect home. Little did I know the house had other plans. Gemma, my girlfriend, was just as excited as I was. We had been dating for 3 years, and moving in together was the next big step. She was an artist, and the house offered plenty of space for her studio. The day we moved in, she was already planning where to put her easels and canvases. "Can you feel it?" she asked, her eyes wide with excitement. "Feel what?" I responded, slightly puzzled. "The energy of this place. It's like it has its own heartbeat." I laughed, thinking she was being overly dramatic. "It's just an old house, Gemma, but I love it too." We spent the day unpacking and arranging our things. By evening, we were exhausted but happy. We ordered pizza and sat on the floor of our new living room, surrounded by boxes, and talked about our plans for the future. Our first night in the house was uneventful, or so I thought. I woke up around 3 a.m. to a faint sound. It was a soft, rhythmic tapping, like someone gently knocking on a door. I sat up, straining to hear. The sound seemed to be coming from downstairs. I glanced at Gemma, who was fast asleep beside me, and decided not to wake her. I crept out of bed and made my way down the creaky staircase. The house was dark, the only light coming from the street lamp outside. I followed the sound to the living room. It was coming from the far wall, where a large painting of the house hung. I stared at the painting, feeling a chill run down my spine. The tapping stopped. I shook my head, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling, and went back to bed. The next morning, I mentioned the sound to Gemma. "Probably just the house settling," she said, brushing it off. "Old houses make weird noises." I nodded, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was something more. Gemma set up her studio in one of the spare bedrooms on the second floor. She spent most of her days there, painting and sketching. One afternoon, she called me upstairs. "You have to see this," she said, her voice tinged with excitement and something else, unease. I walked into the studio and saw a large canvas covered with a chaotic swirl of dark colors. In the center was a distorted figure, half hidden in shadows. It was eerie, almost disturbing. "Wow, that's intense," I said, trying to sound supportive. "I don't know where it came from," Gemma admitted. "I was painting something completely different, and then it's like my hand had a mind of its own. I couldn't stop." We stared at the painting in silence. I didn't know what to say. Art was Gemma's passion, her way of expressing herself, but this painting felt different. It felt like a warning. A few weeks passed and the strange occurrences continued. The tapping at night became more frequent, and I often felt like I was being watched. Gemma's paintings grew darker, filled with twisted, shadowy figures. I could see the toll it was taking on her, but she refused to talk about it. One evening, as we were having dinner, we heard a loud crash from the basement. We both jumped, our eyes meeting in alarm. "I'll check it out," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. The basement was damp and musty, filled with old furniture and boxes left by the previous owners. I scanned the room with my flashlight, searching for the source of the noise. In the far corner, I saw an old mirror lying on the floor, shattered into pieces. I walked over, my heart pounding. As I bent down to pick up the shards, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Reflected in one of the larger pieces was a face. It wasn't mine. It was pale, with hollow eyes and a twisted smile. I stumbled back, dropping the shard. "Are you okay?" Gemma called from the top of the stairs. "Yeah, just a broken mirror," I replied, my voice shaking. I quickly cleaned up the mess and hurried back upstairs, but I couldn't shake the image of that face from my mind. The next day, I decided to explore the attic. I hadn't been up there since we moved in, and I was curious to see if there was anything that could explain the strange happenings. The attic was dusty and filled with cobwebs. Old trunks and boxes were piled haphazardly, and the air was thick with the smell of mildew. As I rummaged through the boxes, I found an old diary. The cover was worn and the pages yellowed with age. I opened it, intrigued. It belonged to a woman named Eleanor who had lived in the house over 100 years ago. Her entries started off mundane, talking about her daily life and her family, but as I read on, they became darker. July 15, 1912. Something is wrong with this house. I hear whispers at night, and I feel like I'm being watched. William thinks I'm imagining things, but I know what I hear. August 3rd, 1912. The whispers are getting louder. I saw a figure in the mirror today. It wasn't my reflection. It was something else. I am terrified. September 10th, 1912. William is gone. I woke up and he was just gone. No one believes me, but I know the house took him. The entries ended abruptly. I felt a shiver run down my spine. Was this what was happening to us? I took the diary downstairs and showed it to Gemma. This is creepy, she said, her face pale. Do you think it's real? I don't know, but it explains a lot. We decided to do some research on the house. We went to the local library and dug through old records and newspaper articles. What we found was disturbing. Several people had gone missing from the house over the years, and there were numerous reports of strange occurrences. The house had a dark history, one that seemed to be repeating itself. As the days passed, the activity in the house grew more intense. We heard footsteps at night, and objects would move on their own. Gemma's paintings became even more disturbing, filled with images of the house and the figure I had seen in the mirror. One night I woke up to find Gemma standing at the foot of the bed, staring at me with vacant eyes. "Gemma," I said, my voice trembling. She didn't respond. Instead, she turned and walked out of the room. I jumped out of bed and followed her. She led me to the basement door and started to descend the stairs. "Gemma, stop!" I shouted, but she continued as if in a trance. I ran after her, my heart pounding. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I saw her standing in front of the broken mirror, her reflection twisted and distorted. "Gemma, wake up!" I shouted, shaking her shoulders. She blinked and looked around, confused. What happened?" "You were sleepwalking," I said, trying to sound calm. "Let's get you back to bed." As we climbed the stairs, I glanced back at the mirror. For a brief moment, I saw the pale face again, watching us with that same twisted smile. We knew we couldn't stay in the house any longer. It was affecting us both, and I was terrified of what might happen next. We packed our bags and decided to leave the next morning, but the house had other plans. That night, the activity reached a fever pitch. The tapping turned into banging, and the footsteps were loud and frantic. We heard whispers, indistinct but menacing. The temperature dropped, and we could see our breath in the air. "We need to get out of here," I said, grabbing Gemma's hand. As we headed for the front door, it slammed shut in our faces. The lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. We stumbled through the house, trying to find another way out. Every door we tried was locked, every window sealed shut. "We're trapped," Gemma whispered, her voice shaking. I refused to give up. I grabbed a chair and threw it at the window. It shattered, and I helped Gemma climb through. Just as I was about to follow, I felt a cold hand grab my ankle. I looked down and saw the pale face, its hollow eyes staring up at me. I kicked and struggled, finally breaking free. I climbed through the window and we ran to the car, not looking back. We drove away, the house growing smaller in the rearview mirror. We never went back to the house. We sold it, taking a loss just to get rid of it. The new owners didn't last long either. We heard they moved out after a few months, citing strange occurrences. Gemma and I moved to a small apartment in the city. It took us a long time to feel safe again. The nightmares persisted, and we often woke up in a cold sweat, hearing the whispers and feeling the cold grip of the house. We tried to put it behind us, but the memories lingered. The house had left its mark on us, a scar that would never fully heal. We never talked about it, not really. It was too painful, too terrifying. But we had each other, and that was enough, or so we thought. One night, months after we had moved, I woke up to a familiar sound, a soft, rhythmic tapping. I sat up, my heart pounding. The sound was coming from the living room. I looked over at Gemma, who was fast asleep beside me. I crept out of bed and made my way to the living room. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. I turned on the light and froze. There on the wall was a painting of the house. It hadn't been there before. In the center of the painting was the pale face, its hollow eyes staring at me with that same twisted smile. The next morning I showed the painting to Gemma. Her face went pale, and she looked at me with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "I didn't paint this," she whispered. "I swear I didn't." We decided to take the painting to an art expert, hoping they could shed some light on its origin. The expert was baffled. "This is definitely old," she said, examining the canvas. "The style, the materials, everything points to it being at least 100 years old. But the subject, it's like nothing I've ever seen." We left the gallery feeling more confused and scared than ever. How could a painting of our house, with that same terrifying face, be over 100 years old? It didn't make any sense. That night, the tapping returned, louder and more frantic. We heard whispers, indistinct but growing clearer. The temperature dropped and we could see our breath in the air. We huddled together, terrified. "Why is this happening?" Gemma whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know," I replied, feeling helpless. "But we have to find out." We spent the next few days researching everything we could about the house and its history. We discovered that Eleanor, the woman who had written the diary, had been accused of witchcraft. She had been tried and executed, her body buried on the property. Legend had it that her spirit had cursed the house, vowing to take revenge on anyone who lived there. We realized that the figure we had been seeing was Eleanor, her spirit trapped in the house seeking vengeance. We knew we couldn't fight this on our own. We contacted a paranormal expert, hoping they could help us. The expert, a woman named Dr. Emily Graves, agreed to come to our apartment. "This spirit is powerful," she said after we explained everything, "but I believe we can put it to rest." She set up a series of candles and incense and began to chant. The air grew thick with tension, and the temperature dropped even further. We heard the whispers again, louder and more menacing. Dr. Graves continued to chant, her voice strong and unwavering. The candles flickered, and the whispers grew into screams. We saw the figure of Eleanor, her pale face twisted in rage, her hollow eyes filled with malice. "You are not welcome here," Dr. Graves shouted. "Return to where you came from." Eleanor's figure wavered, her form becoming less distinct. The screams grew louder, filling the room with a deafening roar. Just when it seemed like we couldn't take it anymore, there was a blinding flash of light. When the light faded, Eleanor was gone. The temperature returned to normal, and the whispers ceased. We looked at Dr. Graves, who was exhausted but smiling. "It's over," she said. "The spirit has been banished." The days following the exorcism were a time of healing. We finally felt safe again. The oppressive weight of the house lifted from our shoulders. The nightmares became less frequent, and the sense of being watched disappeared. We kept the painting as a reminder of what we had been through. It was a symbol of our resilience, our ability to face the darkness and come out stronger. Gemma's art returned to its former vibrancy, filled with light and color. We started to rebuild our lives, focusing on the future instead of the past. Looking back, I realized that the house had changed us. It had tested our strength, our courage, and our love. We had faced something unimaginable, something that had pushed us to our limits, but we had survived. As I write this, I can still feel the echoes of that time. The house may be gone, but the memories remain. They are a part of us, a testament to our endurance. So if you ever find yourself in an old house, and you hear strange noises or see shadows that don't quite make sense, remember our story. Sometimes the past isn't just history. Sometimes it reaches out, seeking to touch the present in ways we can't imagine. And sometimes the scariest thing isn't the house itself, but the secrets it holds. Thank you for staying with me until the end. I hope our story has reminded you of the power of resilience and the importance of facing your fears. Stay safe and remember, some things are better left undisturbed.